Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Let's do a quick audio visual check. Audio, video looking good. Hopefully sounding good as well. Hopefully everybody had a good day today. Today is Wednesday, right? Happy Wednesday. My normal slow markets days. I'm filling in for Dakota, Coach Jay here. If we have not met before, welcome everybody to Slow Markets. Give me just a second just to get some stuff set up here. Uh, We are going to be talking about live markets. So the first thing I want to do is get the top step risk disclosure. This is not a signals class. Uh, Anything we talk about today is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered any type of trading or investment advice. There is considerable risk with trading futures contracts, and everyone should be trusting whatever decisions that they're making um, with the own click of your button. So read through that risk disclosure. When you get a chance. But let's get into it. How was everyone's? Nick gave us signals yesterday. I was watching yesterday. Nick did not give out any signals yesterday. How was everyone's trading day? Let me know how your trading day was. We were gonna go through the markets similar how Dakota was, similar to how Dakota does. I have the Japanese markets up here right now, the Nikkei on the left side, the Japanese yen on the right side. You might ask why I have these up because I looked at the Trader Hub and see that we have some news out in Japan. Japanese manufacturing PMI number supposed to be coming out. Actually, looks like it just got released. Uh, so seeing if we see any type of reaction to the Japanese markets here to potentially take a trade. The Japanese yen, I don't know if anyone's been trading this market, but it's been in a very strong downtrend over the past couple of weeks. Had about a 1% sell off today. So I'm looking to see if there is any continued reaction from this. I'm looking to potentially get in short on the yen, but I'm not just going to sell it here. Need good trade location and need the market to say that it's going to be a good sell as well, and not just blindly sell it. What is going on, everyone? Looks like we had some good days in the chat, some bad days as well. Uh, if you had a bad day, and I'm calling a bad day just a losing day, not necessarily always a bad day if you have a losing day, right? Losing days, as long as they're controlled, can be good days, right? And are good days. I consider any losing day that was part of your plan, right? Planning how to lose. If it was a losing day, if there's something you can learn from it, great. And you know, take whatever you can and move on to the next one. All right, but just seeing, I'll keep these Japanese markets up for a minute. The Nikkei looks like it's testing. I've marked out a few different ranges, right? So 30-minute opening range, we've talked about that. I marked it out here on the Nikkei and on the yen. We see the Nikkei kind of finding some buyers stepping in here. I think what's more interesting on the Nikkei is the 5-minute opening range from when the Japanese yen, when the Asian markets open. So I'm gonna look at that because it looks like we're getting some volume to come into the Nikkei here. I don't trade it often, but if it presents a good setup, I will take it. And again, anything we talk about, educational purposes only, not a suggestion to take a trade. If I do take a trade tonight, it will be in Topstep XFA. But the Nikkei looks pretty interesting right now to the upside. We had a sell off just like we did in all of the other markets, equity markets today in the Nikkei. And what I would be expecting is potentially a retracement of some of that sell off. These markets are under heavy sell pressure currently, but that does not mean that we won't have these reversion moves. So Furious Tiger took a long in the Nikkei there, got a quick 1K. That's what happens in this market, man. $25 a tick. It can happen pretty fast both ways. So make sure you're managing your risk, and definitely not a market that I would suggest anyone trading in a smaller Top Step account, 50K account, or anything like that. Not seeing much as far as a entry signal for me here. If we do get somewhat of a pullback to 37,940, maybe 38,000, I would potentially get into a long there. Um, marked out the 5-minute opening range from the Asian session and looking for a potential pullback to this yellow line, which is VWAP here, uh, for a trade, but maybe keep that one up on a side screen for now because it looks like it's just going to run without me. All right, let's do a quick rapid fire through the rest of the markets. Looking at the NASDAQ here, and if you guys have seen me on slow markets before, you know a little bit how I kind of view all of these markets, framing out the 30-minute opening range and seeing if the markets present an opportunity. I'm anchoring a VWAP to the beginning of that open and looking for that volume to leave the range to either direction and take a trade in that direction. So right now we have price leaving the 30-minute opening range in the NASDAQ to the upside. This VWAP has not caught up to price yet, so I can't take a trade yet. Uh, but if we get a reversion to it, this VWAP catches up to price, then I would take a long, risking the other side of the range. So I'm just doing a quick scan. I mapped out a few of these opening ranges already. Saw someone mentioning gold is pulling back to the opening range. Volume leaving. I do like that. Let me see what this risk looks like. Oops. If I was a buyer, risking about 400 on the other side of that opening range. I don't hate that. Where would my target be? First target in gold would be 2740. But what I'm also remembering is during fast markets today with Nick Fortick, uh, we had a big volume bar. It was the biggest volume bar that we saw in gold all week. And the range is 2730 up to 2738. I believe that's where we're trading right now. So if I was to get long gold, we can see how 50% of this range 2734, we can see how it acts as a resistance, right? I took a long during fast markets here, and I got out because we kept rejecting at this 2734. That is still a resistance. So if I do get long here with good trade location, I'm looking at that as an area we need to break above. And then outside of that, conservative price target would be 2738. What's going on, Dolby, Nick Fortick? See Coach Dakota in the chat as well. What's up, guys? Dakota, hopefully you're feeling better. Hopefully you can eat solid foods. Might be over there eating baby food, but uh, hopefully you're feeling better, man. But they got good painkillers in Utah. So let's see. Maybe we get a pullback in gold. I did take a gold short last night during slow markets, um, based on this same trade. Happy I took profits where I did because it did bounce off of a 50 moving average before eventually selling off throughout the rest of the session. But I may take a quick trade here if it presents itself. If you guys see any other markets that are moving, please, you know, put them in the chat. I have no problem moving over to a different market. I will trade anything that presents a decent setup. So uh, if it looks good, I'll trade it. Uh, ES analysis, we can do ES analysis. I do like trading the ES. And again, if we find one that is moving really well, I will stick with that one, right? I will scan charts like it's nobody's business. But if I find a trade that's setting up really well, I'm going to stick with that. I don't find a reason to continue to bounce around if one market is presenting a decent trade. So uh, right now, I kind of want to stick with gold. I'm actually going to put in a long order in gold at 2731. 2731. I'm putting in a bid for one contract. And I'm just going to risk the other side of that 30-minute opening range. Not a whole lot of risk there. NASDAQ is moving. NASDAQ is moving. Um, yeah, I would not be surprised at a retracement of this move, right? So we had this really large sell off today. We closed above 50% of this sell off. And if the NASDAQ wants to trade back into this range and trade back up to the highs, very good possibility of that happening right now. For me, the Nasdaq is moving, which is great. I don't see a trade signal because this VWAP has not left this range. Could this be a trade that I'm not a part of? Potentially, but I'm okay not trading it for right now. Um, I'm keeping the Nasdaq up on a side screen, and if we do get a pullback to here with this VWAP leaving the range, I may take a trade at 20,300. Right. Now, again, all of these are potential setups. Nothing clear, definitive yet. Gold probably looks the best. Maybe platinum outside of that. Um, but some decent opportunities. The one thing I will say is there is some volatility right now. I know I did check the Trader Hub and I saw that we had this Japanese PMI flash number. We have the BRICS summit that's going on right now, which is gaining a lot of attention. What these uh, countries, I was going to say countries in BRICS are doing, and potentially the value of the dollar changing and things like that. And we're seeing a lot of movement in metals, different currencies. So a lot going on, a ton of volatility, which we embrace as traders because it gives us opportunity. Right. That's it on the Nasdaq. We talked about gold as well. Have a potential setup in gold and in the Nasdaq, um, and we will see. Put my order in gold. Gonna leave it there. Let's take a look at crude oil. Crude oil has been a pretty, to me personally, I'm not a great range bound trader. This has been a tough market for me to really look at, because although it's presenting opportunities, its opportunities kind of stuck in this range. This is technically a buy setup here, where we have that 30-minute opening range. VWAP is leaving the range. So again, a pullback to here. But if I'm looking at it, pullback to 71.15 is a potential buy. But if I'm looking at it, profit target conservatively would have to be 71.50. And then outside of that, $72 even. And the Nikkei was the one. Whatever was uh, in that manufacturing print, the Nikkei liked it a lot. It's kind of running to the upside. And yes, I do use a 30-minute opening range, for anyone asking. I use a 30-minute opening range for Globex session, which is what we're trading right now, slow markets time. And then when we get to the New York session, I'm going to use a 3-minute opening range. And the reason I'm using 3 minutes during New York session is because there's more volume. The markets move a little bit faster. So sometimes that 3-minute presents a better opportunity. Today it didn't. With the 3-minute opening range in the NASDAQ was the 30-minute opening range, where we chopped around a while, kind of caused a little bit of confusion during fast markets. But once we got going outside of that range, it was a really nice trade. NQ played out. Yeah, I mean, it's moving. It's moving. Could I say, "Oh, man, this is a trade I missed?" I could, but it didn't confirm a setup for me, right? Where price is moving outside of this, I could say that this is a good short in the Nasdaq right now, back to the opening range. Um, where price went, but it got away from volume. I wouldn't be surprised at a reversion to this. Let's see what we get. A lot of volatility. This doesn't feel like slow markets. This feels faster than the New York Open. We did have Tesla earnings that came out, right? Tesla earnings looked pretty good. I think when we were talking about it during at the buzzer, Tesla was up about 8%. I'll pull up TradingView to see where it is right now. Um, but Tesla earnings looked good, and we know if Tesla looks good, that is good news for the Nasdaq as well. I'm seeing Tesla was up about 10% after that earnings report. Numbers looked pretty good. Numbers looked pretty good in Tesla. See, we're getting a little bit of a pullback in the Nasdaq here. Again, this volume has not left that opening range. High of the opening range is 20,300 even. which would present a pretty good opportunity to take a long off of a major level if this VWAP does catch up. Yep, gold getting a little bit of a pullback here, almost at my entry, couple points away. I like where my entry is, and if I get in long there with a one lot, risking just under $300, which I like for this account right now. Let's see if they give us an entry, maybe, maybe not. And my VWAP is anchored to the session open. So the first candle open, it's anchored there. So if you just use the regular session VWAP, it would be in the same place. The reason I use the anchor is because I'll anchor at different points throughout the session. Um, so I just like to put them there manually, so I know that I put that line on my chart and it's not just a automated line. If you guys do have any questions, let me know. We'll kind of just do a Q&A. I won't spend too much time on the markets, and I think I've told you guys before. My kind of slow markets prep goes exactly like this, where I might just go through everything on this quote board and look at the first 30-minute candle, attach a VWAP, and see if it's presenting a trade or not. And if I see urgency, and I'll show you what urgency looks like. We talked about this during At the Buzzer, but here's a 30-minute chart on the yen. Here is last night's 30-minute opening range with VWAP attached to it. That's urgency. We see how quickly this yellow line is leaving that range and then acts as a resistance the entire way down. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for signs like this early on. Now, we don't get to see the market like this, right? It plays out that this VWAP was a resistance the entire day and we never actually closed above it. But this happens because this urgency happens early on. So right now, when I'm scanning, I can look at something and say, hey, that's not presenting a great opportunity right away because it may not look like this type of urgency, right? Now, if we look at gold right now, gold is leaving the range, but it's not very urgent, right? This is kind of a gradual leave. So this is an okay trade. I like it, but it's not as urgent as that yen trade is, right? So that's what I'm looking for on these charts. Looks like I like to keep indicators to a minimum. I do. Most of what I do is a drawing because I know I put it there. But yeah, I like to try to keep the indicators to a minimum. Volume, and then everything else is some type of drawing. Uh, Do you count the wicks in the range? If you're saying do I look at the size of the range? Yeah, I will, right? Especially for the New York Session Open. If it's a big opening range, I may not expect much range expansion outside of that range, because it'll take a lot to get out of there. But yeah, I do look at how many points are in a range. Deven Shah says, so if we're above that VWAP, you're more likely to short, else long. It depends, right? If the angle of VWAP is leaving this range to the upside with some momentum, I'm looking to buy any reversions to it. Do you drag anchored VWAP manually? I just click it and click on a chart, click on one of the candles. Last one from Swervel Tone. Do you find it better to enter the market with no bias or with a bias? I think for me, it's having an idea of, I'll say it all the time, look both ways before you cross the street, right? I want to be able to make a case for both sides and then see which one the market presents to me. For example, today in the Nasdaq, if you watch fast markets, I think Nick and I both, right, when we were chopping around in that opening range, we were saying if we had to pick, we were going to pick the downside just based on a couple of things. We had a monthly VWAP that was looking like a target in the Nasdaq. Um, is that a bias? I think it's a hypothesis, and then we see which one the market presents, and then try to get in when the market is presenting that. I personally don't like to have a bias because it's harder to. I don't like to have a bias because I can't control the market, right? I don't get to decide where it goes. I just get to decide how I interact with it. So if I say no, this should go up, and all it wants to do is go down, that makes my trading day very hard, right? Because I need to find a place to buy it at that point. And there are going to be counter trend trades available, but it's a lot easier to just get in the flow of the market and see some bigger trades that way. And Adam says we all have biases. We are human, 100%, right? But I like to take that bias and just set it aside for when I'm trading as much as I can. I find when I have very heavily biased days, they're usually not very good if that bias doesn't align with the market. Do you use VWAP per session, or do you also look at VWAP from the entire day? So this one anchored to the session open ends up being the entire day. So I'll leave this on. But then there will end up being other anchors that I use for the rest of the day. If we get a high volume candle, I'll anchor a VWAP to that. If we get news, I'll anchor a VWAP to that. So this one ends up being the full day. So yeah, I guess you can say I look at full day. We see we're holding this VWAP as a support right now. What time is it? We got 9 minutes until we see that normal kind of volatility spike in gold. Um, Maybe we got 5 ticks away from my entry and I didn't get in. Not going to chase it. I like where my entry is. I know how often we get tests of this opening range. So I'm going to leave it where it is. Did I take that yen trade? I didn't take it. Coach Paul took it. Coach Paul was in that yen trade. Um, It was on his scouting report and at the buzzer, and it was a really nice one. So someone had asked, how do you get into this trade with this urgency? Because it didn't give you a pullback. When VWAP leaves the range like this, what I'm trying to do is get entries as close as possible to this VWAP. Right now, here's a pull up towards it. And why do I want to get in as close as possible? Because sometimes we can feel like if we see the market this way, right? We waited for that confirmation. We waited for VWAP to leave the range. And by the time we see it, we're like, oh, damn it, the market went without me. So I just need to get in. I'm going to sell it here. These natural fluctuations happen in the market where we get a pull up towards this VWAP. Just got to be patient and wait for one of these. And now this improves the reward over risk for this trade, right? By a couple ticks. So we didn't get an exact test of it, but if it's this dramatic, I'm going to take the trade and just put my stop on the other side of VWAP somewhere. How did I not get in at 27.31? What did we pull down? We pulled down to 27.31 half here. We did trade 31s before, but remember my entry was placed after we bounced from there. Let's see. A lot of good questions coming in here, so I'm okay with this being a question and answer session. Do you use VWAP? Okay, I answered that one. Sorry, can you demonstrate anchoring VWAP? I have the indicator, but it only gives me options to anchor it to predefined time. Um, the drawing tools on the left side over here on Topstep X, 5 down in that menu, you have forecasting and measurement tools. You're going to click on the arrow next to that, and anchored VWAP is about halfway down that menu. Just put a star next to it if you're going to use it all the time. Now, I just click on this 2 candles with a line going through it icon, and then click on a candle, and it anchors it from there. Uh, would you use Paul's stop loss of 2 ATRs for slow markets as well? Yes, 100%. Um, yeah, 2 ATR stop is to me has been from my experience a really good stop loss to set for slow markets trades. With good trade location, we've seen that it doesn't get hit very often. So yeah, 2 ATRs I think is a great stop loss, and the Nikkei is just running right now. No pullbacks, just let's just go. Let's just go. Wild market. Are you using the normal VWAP? I'm using open, high, low, close divided by 4. And that's just a suggestion from Brian Shannon, who wrote the book on anchored VWAP, which I have somewhere. It's behind the green screen, so I can't grab it. But open, high, low, close divided by 4 is what he uses. Do you use moving averages in conjunction with VWAP? Yeah, I do. I use really, if I'm looking at moving averages, it's on a 30-minute chart, and I'm looking at, and I gotta thank Coach Paul for these, the 20, the 50, and the 200 moving average. I've seen how much the 200 moving average is a really important level on this 30-minute chart, so I'll use that. But I'm gonna default to volume first, and then the moving averages afterwards. And Nikkei just ran. Where can this go? This feels like it can run back up to this 200 moving average up here at 38,790. And that whatever came out in that EMI number, the market seems to really like. So scanning around, looking for an opportunity. We got about 5 minutes until that normal volatility that we see in gold. Crude oil looks like it's running as well. A lot of volatility. Are you guys taking any trades right now? I see some people taking trades in the Nikkei. Coach Jay, your thoughts about when someone should give up trading and accept it's not for them versus not giving up and working until the goal is achieved? What's the difference? It's a great question. I think we all have to be very honest with ourselves with this. And um, if things aren't going well, I think that's okay. But if things aren't going well and you aren't willing to accept that you may need to change something, then I think it's time to maybe consider taking some time off at least, right? If you continuously doing the same thing, seeing the same results after an extended period of time and are not willing to make any changes and be honest with that, then I think it might be time to, consider taking a step back at least. Um, but be patient with yourself. I think if you've tried everything and really tried everything, right? We tell some people sometimes, hey, you can see the markets really well, but you're trading too big. Scale down and trade one micro until you feel comfortable. And then you get the response that says, I don't want to do that. That's the type of person that should probably stop, right? Because you're not willing to make what might be an incremental change for a short period of time uh, to see some success and then build on top of that success. But if you're willing to take that advice and understand where you are in your trading journey, it's going to be difficult and it's going to take different times for every person, right? Everyone's journey is going to look different. But as long as you're willing to do honest work and be honest with yourself, I think it's something you can do. If it puts you in a tough financial situation, maybe consider taking a break until you're in a better place. Uh, but it really is up to you. I think if you're asking that question, maybe taking a week off from trading and seeing where it fits in your life may not be such a bad idea. And when I say take a step back, I don't mean walk away unless that's the decision that you decide to make. I've been trading for a long time and traded with some traders, and some of them, wow, we just got a spike in volume across a couple different markets. These are not slow markets, guys. I don't know what Dakota signed me up for, but it's a lot going on right now. And I'm not saying quit forever, right? I've taken 6-month breaks before where I really had to decide whether or not this is something I want to continue doing. Um, and always came back to it. But what I try to do is say, hey, when I come back, I have to do something different. I have to change my risk parameters. I have to scale down and trade the account that I have instead of the account that I want. Um, and then I'll build up to the account that I want. Yeah, oil is just running right now. I think it heard me say I didn't like to trade it, and it was like, "All right, let me show you something." Still looking at the gold buy, yeah. It didn't give me my entry, and it looks like it's gonna go without me now. We are at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Central, and we did get that spike. Missed me by a couple ticks on my entry. It was 4 ticks away. Yeah, this is definitely better price action than the New York session for sure. Across the board, really. Seeing silver, platinum. Must be war stuff going on. If anyone sees a headline, let me know. Looks like we get a little bit of a pullback here in gold. See if I can get in. I still like this trade. Have you found volume candles to be helpful? 100% Butters. I think if I could have, actually, that's not true. I was gonna say if I could have one indicator and one time frame, it would be a 3 minute chart and volume, but it would be a 3 minute chart and VWAP. But yeah, volume candles I definitely do find helpful. Again, if we look at just on gold here, if I was not trading gold all day and I wanted to know what happened and I came in and see this high volume candle, I'm going to frame that out and that gives me an opportunity to take a trade. 50% of this candle held for a decent short, my risk could be on the other side of it, and that trade played out a couple of times, right? So finding these kind of volume anomalies, I think present really good trade opportunities. Um, so yeah, volume candles definitely help. Institutional traders use price action or technicals. I think they use a combination. I think they use a combination of a bunch of different things. If they're institutional traders, they're probably using some form of fundamentals as well. I think it's a combination. If there's any institutional traders in the chat, let me know. What do you guys use? What's your targets on gold? So that's the thing, right? If we got in, we are at the conservative target because this has been a resistance, at least on a shorter time frame. This 2734, right? 50% of that high volume candle that we were talking about. Conservative price target would be I would be watching the market reaction here. Ideally don't want to take the trade off here, but I would probably remove the risk on the trade at this point. Where if I did get in long, I would probably be break even now because this area has acted as a resistance. I don't want to turn this what could be a small trade into a loser. But then if we get above this 50% area, now I would be looking at the high of that candle, 2738, as my target, and then looking to trail my stop up somewhere below where this resistance eventually becomes a support. Where do I really want to trade gold up to? 2750. But the market has to agree with that idea. Institutional traders on YouTube saying we only look for order flow, and then some say retail traders and price action. Uh, I think institutional traders are probably looking at order flow because they are the order flow. Um, right? So you need to know if you're trading size, you need to know that there's other size out there potentially to get your business done. Um, if an institutional trader needs to trade 10,000 lots of the Nasdaq and it's very illiquid, they're going to look for where potential liquidity might be to get that business done. So I think it makes sense that they look at order flow. I look at order flow as the way I was taught how to trade, um, and it's paying attention to where bigger orders are getting filled and what the intentions of those bigger orders might be, and then going from there. And this gold trade is just going to do exactly what we wanted to, and just not get me in by 4 ticks. But that happens. That's trading. I'm on a 3 minute time frame right now. I mapped out everything on a 30 minute, but I'm on a 3 minute. Coach Jay, with that higher low created, would you move your entry up to somewhere in the higher low? Uh, if this was a more urgent move, I would, but right now, no. Um, and someone asked, why is my entry below VWAP? Concept for that one is I want to try to get a better price than the average buyer in this, right? This is volume weighted average price. So average price of the buyers, we're looking at it 2732. I want to try to get a better price than their average. And with me doing that, I didn't get in the trade. Um, so it's about your order placement. I've seen where this VWAP does, price does shoot below it real quick, pick up some orders down here and then keep going. So that's why my entry was where it was, the high of that opening range getting retested. In hindsight, we already did get a test of that opening range. So maybe my entry should have been somewhere in this candle that tested the opening range. It happens. Find another trade. Cammy, what's going on, Cammy? If you guys have not seen Cammy's trading on YouTube. Definitely check it out. Started live trading again. Cam, you usually trading gold, right? JD, that's a good question, right? Could I have moved this exit up? But now, where does my risk go? Right. If I move it up here, where does my risk go? Because ideally, I want to risk the low of this opening range. And then now let's just switch over to this real quick. Maybe I should have just bought it like I did in this combine. But if I take the trade now, now that risk is $600, and I don't want to risk $600. I could scale down and trade micros, but to me, this trade location is just not as good as it once was. So, a couple of ticks away from my entry. I'm looking at it and saying, hey, the idea was right. Not going to overreact to it. And if the market wants to, it'll give me a pullback to get back in. Amy trading gold and NQ. Nice. Gold has been a great market, man. Some good questions coming in. Somebody asked for some ES analysis, so we'll look at the ES as well. Uh, here's the ES on the 30-minute. Here's that 30-minute opening range. And this is going to look like VWAP leaving that range to the upside. And on a pullback here, pullback to this VWAP, I would look to get in. No urgency, right? Hasn't left the range with any kind of urgency. So I don't want to buy it here. Ideally, I don't want to buy it at the high of the range either. I want to buy it lower just to get a better price. But sometimes, like gold, you might not get in. Hold Evader says, I notice when there's a volume spike, there's usually also a market imbalance at that location. Uh, it's a good point. That's a good point. Think about what that means, right? If there's an imbalance, somebody has to sell 500 contracts, but at that price, there's only 50 available, right? Now, I might have to urgently sell this 500 lot order, but there's only 50 available at the price that I want. So I have to take whatever next price is available. And that's what creates that imbalance, right? I'm going to take it. Sometimes it's a market sell 500 and just give me whatever price you want. That's what creates that imbalance. And that's what creates these quick moves, right? Where if you've joined at the buzzer, you heard me and Coach Paul talk about this, and he has a lot of floor experience. So I like to hear him talk about, what it looked like when somebody had a big order that they needed to get filled and didn't care about the price. They got, hey, just sell anything. I don't care what it is. Maybe it's a forced liquidation. But when that happens, it looks like this, right? So those imbalances happen when somebody has a big order that needs to get filled and there isn't enough of the other side to fill it at a specific price. Right. That's what I'm seeing on the ES. If we look at the moving averages, um, this did something very interesting today. We traded below the monthly VWAP, and I posted this on Twitter. If you guys are not following me on Twitter, you don't have to. But it would be cool if you did. If anyone is on Twitter, I am on there, or X, whatever you want to call it. This yellow line here is the monthly VWAP for the ES. We sold off below it and then reclaimed above it. Uh, so very interesting here, where buyers have a chance to say, no, we're in control for the rest of the month, and we stay above this line. Right now, it's at 57.26. We can see we're trading 57.50s now, so buyers still in control. But do they have enough? Are there enough convinced buyers to continue this to the upside, or do we sell off right back below that monthly VWAP? There's a fake coach Paul who keeps calling me from Discord. Just block him. None of the coaches or any top step employees or anything like that are going to reach out to you directly first, unless we message you and say, hey, can you talk about something? There's a lot of scamming going on out there. Don't pay anyone for anything. Don't pay anyone to pass your combines or anything like that. We're not going to do that. We fail combines sometimes too. So maybe you might want to take your own trades. Uh, but look at gold working out, doing what we wanted. Didn't get me in. But let's see. Let's just manage what we have here, right? So we talked about, and I had took the original position off that I put on here just as a feeler. But we talked about potentially moving the stop up to, now that we've reclaimed 50% of this candle, moving the stop up to, I would go to the candle that closed above it, below that, right? So this candle right here technically closed above that 50%. My stop would go below this candle now. And really all we're looking for right now is, and someone had mentioned this imbalance, right? This big selling here, we tried to trade through it before, we rejected, kept rejecting. Whoever was the seller here is continuing to sell. But now the way I'm reading this is, okay, they created all this selling volume. Are they going to defend this position, or are they going to take profits on it? Did they take profits down here and now they don't really care what happens here and the market can trade back through it? That's how I'm reading this right now. So remember, conservative price target was 50% of this selling, ultimate price target 27.38, and now I'm not going to just take the position off at 27.38. What I would do is, if we trade up there, find another place to trail to. If this market wants to keep running and go to 27.50 or make new all-time highs, I want to try to capture as much of that as possible by trailing the market up. But let's see, right? We're not seeing, we got above that 50%, but this has still been somewhat of a rejection area. We see during the New York session, we bounced back up to 27.36. We kind of rejected around there right now. Let's see if this 50%, which is at 27.34.4, holds as a support now. 27.34.4 is at 50%. Only thing safe about trading is using a market stop loss, 100%. Market stops, right? Not even stop limits, because there's no guarantee that you get filled on those. So market stop, accept that you were wrong when you're wrong, and then just find another trade. How do I draw that green and black rectangle? So it is just a fib tool. 3 down on the drawing tools, you have fib retracement. It's a hot, you can use it as a hotkey, Alt F. So I just click Alt F and then draw it. But mine are, you can see I have everything unselected except for 0, 50%, and 100%. Um, I don't use fibs. The, the intermediate fib levels, I know a lot of people do and they are important, but for me, I just want to know where the high and low and midpoint of uh, some type of volume anomaly was. VWAP turns below the 21 MA. Does that mean anything? Uh, yeah, if VWAP is turning to the downside, it definitely does mean that there is some selling pressure in the market. When you say 21 MA, what time frame are you looking at? So maybe I'll just pull up your exact example here. This is Royal. Have a good one. Thanks as always for joining, man. Is that target of 27.40 in gold taken from the 200 moving average on the 3 minute? That target on gold is taken from the high of this sell off, 27.38. Right? And we can see, we can maybe, I'm framing out this 3 minute candle, but I know that this candle looks this way because of the specific time frame I use, right? If I go to a 5 minute, we may get a different candle. And now the high of that candle is 27.41. Right? Now it looks like a little bit of a different story, and that's why it's important to keep it consistent whatever time frame you use. But yeah, somewhere around there, right? General area 27.38, 27.40. Just looking to see if the market can trade back up to the high of that selling. Is there a reason you use the 100K combine and not the 50K? Uh, no, I don't think there's a reason. I don't know why I got 100K. I actually don't know. I actually don't know. I think they're both fine. I think there's enough drawdown in both of them to trade decent size, especially when you build a buffer. And look at this go. 4 ticks away from my entry. Gotta love it. It's a nice trade though. VWAP turning below the 21 moving average on the 5-minute NASDAQ. All right, let's take a look at it. And VWAP from where? Okay, so I think you're talking about this, where the 21 moving average is this yellow line here, and then the VWAP is this, we'll make it red line. I don't really look at it that way, but I guess I could see what you're saying, right? I guess it depends on which one you use. Um, do you defer to moving averages more? Do you defer to VWAP more? I'm going to defer to VWAP, and what I'm seeing is that both this 21 moving average and the VWAP are leaving this range slowly, not very convincingly. So I don't love this as a trade, but maybe this means that the volume is slowing down up at these highs. Last night presented a really nice, almost perfect technical setup in ES. I want to ask you a question about, but I'm limited to characters here. Should I pose the question on Discord? Yeah, you can put it in Discord. I'll see if we can get to it. You use special VWAP settings. The only setting that changed is open, high, low, close divided by 4. What I mean by that is when you go into VWAP, you have the source. Why is this divided by 3? Should be 4, but that's the only thing I changed. Tim, I see your comment there. Thanks. And it's one thing we say, all of us as coaches, right? Find someone that resonates with you, and it might not be me. Someone might look at. I've had people join a class that I'm giving on, reading the tape, and they're just like, "This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about." It's fine. That's fine. Because my strategy doesn't have to make sense to you, right? Dakota's strategy doesn't have to make sense to you, because they are going to be different, right? I think the one really good thing about Topstep TV is you get a bunch of different personalities that trade differently. I think it is important for everyone to kind of filter out and find what works for them. But the great thing about Topstep TV, and I don't think we talk about this often enough, is all of that education is free, right? You could see somebody on Instagram post whatever picture of a Lambo, whatever car, and say, "Oh, I want to join that person's class." Pay 3 grand, get there, and don't understand anything that they say, right? And now it's just like, man, I have to force myself to learn this way, and maybe I don't. Maybe my brain doesn't register what this person is trying to tell me, and I just spent 3 grand. Uh, with Topstep TV, every day you get different traders with different styles, and we're all learning from each other at no cost. So if someone's style doesn't resonate with you, it's okay to say, "Hey, you know what? I don't agree with that, or I don't see the market the same way they do." And, you know, I can learn from how that person makes decisions, but maybe I don't trade the way they do. What makes a market? And speaking of a market, gold, gold, gold. Silver running too. Oh man, we talked about silver and at the buzzer. Look at this in silver, 200 moving average on the 30-minute chart. It's something I learned from Coach Paul, and I'm never going to forget ever. Look at how infrequently we touch this white line, and when we do, the reaction to it, right? So decent bounce here, another bounce here, and a rally. We traded off. We look like we're going to sell off, bounce right at the 200 moving average, and who knows what's going to happen? It could continue to sell off, but presented a really nice opportunity to trade here as well. How do you feel about stochastics, divergence, etc? Uh, I don't really use them. I've found so I think what a stochastic might do, or like a MACD or something like that. I From what I've tried to understand about them, I may not have to have all three of these moving averages on the chart, right? But the stochastic is going to tell me the kind of positioning of these moving averages, right? So I have a shorter time frame, which is the 20, the higher time frame or medium time frame, which is the 50, and the longer time frame, which is the 200. That stochastic or MACD, if I use that, would tell me which one is higher than the other, things like that. I've never really used them. That's probably one thing I haven't really tried much at all in my trading, so I don't have too much of an opinion for you. Is that a 200? All of these are SMAs. SMAs. So now let's look at this gold trade. We're gonna manage it like it was a real trade. Again, we trailed our stop up, um, and remember the original entry was down. Well, my original entry I didn't get hit on. Let me make sure I cancel that order because I don't want it anymore. Um, Original entry was somewhere down here near 32s, so this trade would be about $200 in the or $500 in the profit if we left that original one on. I think I canceled it to show something. So what I would do now is move this to this 50%, right? Because this will be locking in $200 from where that original entry was. Now, if this 50% wants to hold, great. But we are nearing the high of that candle. So I got to be thinking about the potential rejection here, right? This is where a big seller came in. And if they're not ready to give up that position, they may still be there and the market's reacting to it and may continue to sell off. So uh, I could want this to go up to 2,800. If this seller doesn't want to, they got a bigger account than me. So I got to, you know, fit my trade into what is going on in the overall picture of the market. But really nice trade here. And where was the target on this? 2734 was conservative. Once we got above that and started to use it as a support, trailed up, then 2738, which is where we are right now. Um, so I could technically trail this here as well because if we come back down to test 50%, don't know if I want to be in this trade anymore. And that would be securing $300 from where that initial entry was. Joey just made 1,500 on the Nikkei long. Very nice trade. Never gave me a pullback to get in. We got that news out of Japan and it just went. Is your style ICT based? No, I do see a lot of overlap. I never really took any ICT courses or anything like that. I've watched the videos because we have traders and kind of working with traders. There is a lot of overlap, but that's going to be anything in trading, right? No matter how you look at the markets, everyone trades the same prices. So ultimately, there's going to be a lot of overlap in strategies. Whatever you decide to call something, if it helps you make sense of it, great. But yeah, there is a lot of overlap for sure. You see how we were bouncing around trying to find something early on, right? Where we didn't have a market that was presenting a good opportunity, and then we found gold and we haven't moved since. This is the way that I like to trade, right? Instead of saying, hey, I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket, I'm gonna try to find out what the NASDAQ is doing, and then getting stuck in something like this, gold presented a cleaner opportunity and a quicker entry. I don't care what the NASDAQ does now, right? Sometimes I do trade multiple markets at the same time if they present good setups. But right now, I could just manage gold, right? And I also don't have to sit here and stare at this either, right? I could look for another opportunity. Let's scan around. This trade is working out. Is anything else presenting a good opportunity? The yen didn't leave this range with urgency, and I don't really want to be a buyer of the yen at all. Because if you look at this higher time frame, it is a very strong sell-off. The yen could bounce 2% from here. I don't want to buy it. This is one market that I will have a bias in, and if you ask why, look at this daily chart from 2020. It's just straight down. I don't want to be a buyer of the yen for any kind of time period at all. Hey, any other questions? Let us know. What time we got? We got about a half an hour. Again, I'm gonna continue to scan around. Uh, don't really want to look at gold since it left me. Um, but there may be some other decent opportunities setting up. Nat Gas has been consistently on this top percentage mover list. It's either been to the upside or the downside. Our top percentage mover a couple of days in a row now. And you can see we got above that 200 moving average on the 30-minute for the first time pretty much since the beginning of October. So I would not be surprised to see a short covering rally into $3 in that gas, which isn't far off from where we are right now. This may be a market I'm looking for a trade in as well. Shay needs his own 3-hour show. I don't know if I could talk that much. I lose. I feel like I'm losing my voice right now. And I'll be on Fast Markets tomorrow with Anne Marie, and then uh, on with Trade with Topstep with Deanna and Paul H at 1 p.m. Central. And then I'll be on Fast Markets on Friday with Mohammed, which I'm excited about both of those. All three of those segments I'm excited about. Paul H, I think you guys should definitely tune into that one. He's a trader that, submitted to trade with Top Steps, been trading really well in a couple of combines and I believe XFAs. He's in the at the buzzer chat all the time. He's been on Topstep TV before, but definitely a segment I think everyone should watch. Or JTV. Furious Tiger, you're right. I do have my own show, 4:15 Eastern at the buzzer every day, reviewing the markets, going over these exact setups that we're talking about in trading right now. And Coach Paul and I, both basketball coaches, look at it like game film, where when something happens, I don't want to have to guess what's happening. I want to say, hey, I've seen this 1,000 times before. Now I can just react, right, and take the trade. So it's why we do it. It's important to back tests and all these other things, but we also have and again, nothing we do is for suggestions to take a trade, but we do something that's called a scouting report, right? Hey, Coach Paul, what are you looking at that may present a potential opportunity? If you guys join at the buzzer, the yen was on his scouting report all week. One of the biggest trades of the day. So really good segment. Again, not a suggestion to take a trade, just for educational purposes, trying to understand how we view the markets. What did I trade today? I traded the I traded gold last night. I traded gold last night. I took a short in gold last night. Switched to GC. I took a short in gold last night during slow markets. Pretty much this a very similar setup to what we have right now. Uh, Here is the 30-minute opening range. We had a sell-off, right? See the volume left the range. We came back, tested the range. I got in short right here, 27.61.1. I got in short. And my price target was I got in short 3 contracts here. If you guys were in the chat, you probably saw me say I got short 3 contracts in gold. Took 2 off as we sold off to 27.57, and then tried to hold one as a runner, and got it down somewhere near to here. And then I lost some of those profits today during the New York session, trading the Nasdaq, trying to catch the bottom, which I kept catching it and it kept going lower. And then ultimately I, got back to, positive on the day, catching along in the NASDAQ from 20,120 when we actually got a reversal signal. See this kind of 3-bar reversal here on the 30-minute. It showed up on the 3-minute as well. And that kind of saved my day. Um, I did have, for whatever reason, some type of I think, I'll be honest, I think I got upset that I didn't short at 20,450. And then just tried to put trades on. And again, I've been doing this for 12 years. It happens to me as well. I think what is important and what you learn is how to mitigate that risk when it happens. Um, you're going to get put under pressure in trading a lot, and it's about your decision making under pressure that saves your account. You may not have a big winning day that you were supposed to have, but if you know how to manage the emotions when they present themselves to you, then you can survive a day like this where I'm buying the Nasdaq, ended up positive, not as big as I should have had, but could have been a catastrophic day. And it wasn't because you know how to manage emotions. Is there a micro for lean hogs? Maybe piglets. What's going on, Paul? No micros for lean hogs. No baby pigs. Uh, Not yet, at least. Maybe when lean hogs prices get up there, they'll uh, create a micro, but not for now. Nagal says, "Do you have any days where you don't take trades?" 100%, 100%. More so, not that there isn't a setup, because I think the way I view the markets, I can find a setup somewhere. It's more so, hey, I'm not in the right mental space to even think about taking a trade. And look at this strong reaction in gold off of 27.40. Right now, I'd probably say, hey, we got to my ultimate price target on this. If the market wants to now sell off and come all the way back through this range, Great. I'm going to take my profits. We did get a rejection at 27.40. And if we looked at it on the 5 minute chart, right, that was closer to the highs of this sell off candle. So I'm going to secure more profits there, trail this up, and let it continue going. Are you able to look back on technicals available to you, i.e., kind of back test to look at a scenario in the past to see what the technicals you used looked like at the time? Yeah, 100%. That's actually how I trade, and how I kind of seen exactly what I wanted. This 30-minute opening range, 3 minute opening range, attached VWAP. There was, I knew this is a setup that I took all the time, but when it came to coaching and wanting to explain to traders exactly what it is that I'm looking at and trying to simplify it as much as possible, I had to say, hey, definitively, what can you say about this setup where there are no questions, right? If someone says, hey, how can I trade this and trade it to a high probability? I need to know exactly what that looks like. So I spent a weekend, and I think I did this earlier, either earlier this year or at the end of last year. I saw Tom Hugard do this thing where he had like 10,000 slides of a trade setup. So then there's no more there's no more questions at that point about the setup, right? Either it is or it isn't. So I did 5 years of Nasdaq charts and looked at every day in the past 5 years of that 3 minute and 30 minute setup. Um, so I don't have any questions about it now. It's either now for me, it's when it presents itself, it's going to work somewhat, right? It's to a high probability it's going to work. It's about my execution of the setup at that point. But let's see. See, we'll get a little bit of a pullback here. It's why I want to secure some profits. I'm still trailing kind of under where the high of that 30 minute, that 3 minute candle. High of the 3 minute candle was 27.38. My stop's below that. So if that high wants to hold, great. But if they decide that, hey, you know what, no more buying, we're just going to sell all the way through it, I'm going to take as much profit as I can from this. All right. Any other questions you guys have? I'm kind of scanning through. Also looking for other trade setups. So if you see any other markets that are presenting some decent opportunities, let me know. Um, we found a really good one, but I would love to take a trade in my. I love taking a trade in slow markets exactly like this one to kind of set the base for the day going into the New York session. Right. It's always nice to have like a little bit of breathing room between you and your personal daily loss limit before you trade the New York session. And ideally, I don't want to give back much of the profits that I have, but it's a nice feeling to go in with a buffer. So I'm looking for a potential opportunity, but I'm not going to force anything. Crude oil, yeah, pull back to 71.30. Maybe we'll pull back to 71.30 in crude, 71.50. I don't want to trade around that whole number. But so my thing in crude, right? Where would your target be in crude? 72s? 72, I think it has to be. At some point, we need to fill whatever this imbalance is. Looks like we're trying to do it now, right? This big sell off. This was that after hours sell off. Last week, Monday, we had this big move in crude after the markets were closed, and we haven't traded through those prices again. So as we start to get acceptance back in this range, that's what I would be looking at, right? And same way, 72. We already tested 72, so I would consider that already tested. Now, do we trade to 50%? Same way, if 50% starts to hold as a support, do we fill that entire imbalance? But right now, we see price trying to close inside of it. Ideally, what I would look for in crude right now is, and maybe we got it on a, yeah. Alright, sorry about this. A 71.30, 71.40 pullback, I think I would buy crude there. And what that gives us is this large selling imbalance, the low of it acting as a support, or the potential to trade back through it. Last question: how do you determine a daily bias? Shout out to Coach Paul for this one. Daily bias, I think a really good way to do it and is to look at the 30-minute chart and look at where the market is in relation to this 200 moving average. Uh, what Coach Paul will tell you is above this 200 moving average, he's only looking to buy it. Below it, he's only looking to sell it. So then for me, my daily bias from that point, right? Let's go with that. Gold is saying it's a buy because it's above this 200 moving average. I really like that as well. Then for me, I'm going to go to the first 30-minute candle, match a VWAP, and that's my daily bias. So far, daily bias is to the upside. We have this 30-minute range that I marked out here, 71.13 at the highs and 71 at the lows. And VWAP is leaving that range to the upside. This is telling me so far today, buyers are in control. You could do this. Like we could, in the next, we got 24 minutes. We could probably do the same thing for every single market on this watch list. What's the daily bias based on that in copper? This is copper. Notice I'm not looking at prices. I'm not looking at anything else. I'm looking at this moving average. Right now, we're below this moving average. And Coach Paul will tell you he's not looking to buy it under here. But also, it may not be a great place to sell it either. Right. So for me, I look at this 200 moving average, potential retracement to it, reversion to it. If we look at the first 30 minutes, view up, what's the daily buy so far? Bullish. Right. Same setup that we looked at in gold. It's playing out in copper. Where would my target be? Probably the 50 moving average, which is where we traded to right now. If that holds as a support, 200 moving average is my target. Let's pick another market. Let's look at wheat futures. Don't know if anyone has traded wheat here before, but they open up at 8 p.m. White line is the 200 moving average. We're above it. Wheat has been below that 200 moving average for a couple days. Wheat opens at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central. I anchor a view up here. The opening range, no direction yet. No trade. Deven Shah says, but due to today's sell-off in like everything seems to be below the 200 moving average. 100%, right? Where if we look at the Nasdaq, it's below that 200 moving average. The bias could be saying, hey, below this 200 moving average, it's a short. And again, that's how Coach Paul looks at the market. He would not be looking to buy this under this 200 moving average. But is it a great place to short here? Right? The bias could be to the downside, but trade location still matters for a day trade. Right? If we were swing trading, investing, it's a little bit different, but I still need to get good trade location on a day trade to take advantage of that bias. I can't just sell it here. What if the market wants to push up to this 50 moving average first and then sell off? And that's why I'll look at these moving averages, but then I want to say, hey, what is the market saying since we've opened? The market is saying since we've opened that price is moving up. Volume is not very convinced about price, but it's floating up. Right now, what I would be looking for if I want to get into this bias, let's say my bias is to the short side, right? Because we're under this 200 moving average. At what point do the buyers fail? Where they've tried to, whoever these buyers are, they're not very convincing, right? Because VWAP is not going with them. So at what point do they say, you know what? We've tried, price is not moving higher. I give up. And that gives the sellers the opportunity to come back in. Kind of looks like it's happening right now, right? So maybe that's an opportunity to get into this short. Mark, don't try to write so fast, man. It's okay. It's a good thing about doing these classes now. They're recorded, right? So they're recorded on YouTube. You could always go back. Um, we are trying to get all of our coaches on Discord that are in Discord on YouTube eventually, and that will happen. And TopStep will probably be 24/7, giving education because if you guys haven't joined the coaching sessions, and I know there's a lot of them, and we talked about filtering out information and all that other stuff. Coach Ray and Coach Vince, Coach Hoop as well in Discord, some really good information. And again, all it costs you is your time and attention. Coach Vince had a short in the ES today from 58.71, and his target was 58.05. I don't know what else to say. Coach Ray does record his and puts his in there as well. He definitely stood his ground on that short. He said, "I'm short at 58.71 until it proves me wrong." And he was not wrong. You guys remember, I saw somebody mention, but isn't the higher time frame to the upside? Yeah, if we zoom out on the equities far enough, everything is up to the upside, right? But we got to remember that we're day traders, right? So the highest time frame I'll probably look at is a weekly, but I usually don't look at weekly charts until the end of the week. I'm going daily, 30-minute, 3-minute, right? Because we are day trading here. For swing trades, I may zoom out, but we with top step accounts are making intraday decisions. So I want to know the intraday trend if I'm going to trade that market. Bradley, have a good one. So you look at the 200 SMA on 30 minutes only. Yeah, MT. I'm only for me personally. I'm only looking at the 200 moving average on the 30-minute. Um, does it present some pretty good opportunities on the 3-minute as well? Yes, but that's something that I've added to my trading recently. That 200 moving average on the 30-minute. Um, I'm gonna default to volume on shorter time frames. Intraday, you're saying ES is down right now. We're if we talk about the session that just started at 6 p.m. Eastern, ES's trend is to the upside right now. Now, if I zoom out to the higher time frame trend or medium time frame trend, if you will, right, 30-minute, it's to the downside. Right, we had this consolidation. Medium time frame is to the downside. We could zoom out further. Higher time frame is to the upside. So was this just a pullback on the higher time frames to then get in? Let's look at this 20 moving average on the ES. This is a daily acting as a support, right? So we've checked this support on the higher time frame. We got a pullback. So now are we the question is, are we in the next stage of this upside movement? So far today, we're moving to the upside, right? That's how I'm looking at it. Am I liking a short in the ES here? 58.50 does give you, that kind of whole number level to potentially short. Let's see what I like about a short here. We got a little bit extended from VWAP. Volume has not left that range. So I would not be surprised at a pullback to this volume here. Let's see. Nice 2-to-1 trade there potentially. I'm actually going to take that. Why am I taking this trade? We have this 30-minute opening range. We pushed up to 58.50 and didn't see any buyers push above that level. And this red line VWAP has not left this 30-minute opening range. Right. So this is a cheap opportunity to take a trade. I'm with the medium time frame trend to the downside. If this wants to continue to push and go up, great. But I would not be surprised at a reversion to this VWAP, especially because it has not left that range. So let's see. Could be right, could be wrong. Not risking a whole lot. Risk is defined. If we make a new high, then this trade idea is wrong. Um, if this VWAP starts to leave this range early, I might move this target up. But I like this. Tom, gotta get some sleep. Yeah, I gotta get some sleep after this too. I could not sleep at all today. What do I trade mostly? My chart is fuzzy. Is my chart fuzzy to anybody else? I'll try to zoom in. Maybe that's a little bit clearer now. But yeah, this is the ES chart. Let's take this positions thing off of here too. You show how you drew the range. I just use the fib tool with 0, 50%, and 100% checked, and Alt F and pick the high and low of the candle. Right, so this was my candle here, this kind of doji 30-minute candle. The high is 58.45, low is 58.41. So just anchored it to the high and the low. Hearts are clear. Thanks, Andrew. Dodgers or the Yankees? Yankees for sure. Can't say anything else. Living in New York. I'm not really a baseball fan. I will watch. To me, the baseball season is just way too long. I'm very excited that basketball season has started. Very cool to see LeBron play with his son um, for the first time, first father son duo to play together in the NBA, which is pretty cool to watch. If anyone did catch that last night, the Lakers actually look really good. Uh, I've been a LeBron fan. He's been in the league since I was in high school, and I'm actually a big fan of JJ Redick also, who's their new coach. He's just a very smart dude. And if you ever watched his podcast, the way he talks about basketball is very methodical approach to coaching. And if you watch the way that I'm getting in basketball nerd mode right now, but if you watch the way the Lakers move, they look like a much more fluid team. I think they could actually win a championship this year based on the way that the team is moving. Will Bronny win Rookie of the Year? That's probably not going to happen. Um, Am I a Duke fan? I'm just a basketball fan in general. I don't have a team. I think I just love to see good players play well. I Cooper Flag I think is a generational talent in basketball. I'm excited to see what they do. Uh, we're not gonna let's see what happens when you bring up some topics. Chat always takes it and runs somewhere else with it. Jamal Crawford is another person I would put as a coach as well. So Rodney Daniels, and we're not going to turn this into a basketball show because I could definitely do that for another hour. But if you watch that Mind the Game podcast that JJ Redick and LeBron had, they're actually looking for new hosts since you know JJ Redick's the coach of the Lakers now, and I think Jamal Crawford would be a great uh, host of that show. What do you think about Westbrook? It's my brother, so I think he's great. Not my brother. I do have 3 brothers. Russell Westbrook is not one of them. Okay, back to the charts. This short isn't going anywhere, but I still do like this trade. Again, it's managed risk, not risking a whole lot on this. Looking for a pullback somewhere to this VWAP because it has not left the range. Ideally, I would love for it to test the low of the range, right? So I can get more like a 3-to-1 on that trade, but not going to be greedy. We got about 10 minutes left. Let me check to make sure I'm not missing any notes or anything like that. Give me 1 second here. How long have I been trading full time? Um, I have and will always have multiple sources of income. But I've been trading pretty full time for the past 7 years. Gold catching a bid. Yeah. Looking away from gold now. EC says, I'm $100 away from passing, which I know is the easy part, but I'm trying not to psych myself out. Don't think about how far you are away. Just think about the next good trade setup. Be surprised that you passed. If you're $100 away and you want to put your daily profit target at $125, just so you know you don't have to worry about exiting a trade as soon as you hit the profit target. Just find a good trade setup. Don't expect that it's going to happen tomorrow. I know that happens to traders all the time where it's, hey, I'm close enough to pass. This could be the day. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to find the one trade that's going to pass that account. Because it could be a loser, right? And just like this trade could be a loser, it doesn't affect the next trade that I'm going to take, right? So just find a good setup that you trust. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, great. It's a setup that you trusted and it wasn't based on anything but a playbook, right? Not the scoreboard. You plan explain how you find strong levels, please. Strong levels for me are going to be based on volume, Sev. Strong levels are based on volume. Why am I basing my strong levels on volume? Is because notice in the gold trade that we had, I talked about the volume first and then the price afterwards. Why is that the case? Because someone executed a ton of volume at these prices. What that tells me is that these prices were important to some market participant, right? Not me. And these are strong levels. So when the market trades back into them, we start to use it as a support. We're trading to the other side of it as a potential target, right? If I just pick a level, it can be important, but the market could also just not give a shit about that level at all. And then I just picked an arbitrary number based on something I think. And we said it earlier that I don't control the market. So here's another one. Look at this high volume candle, 3-minute chart. It's the highest volume candle that we see in relation to everything else. Look at how the bottom of it holds. I could anchor a VWAP to this. Same gold trade that we took before, right? This is anchored to a high volume candle. Why am I picking this one? Because it's the highest volume in relation to anything around it. I anchor VWAP there, and I see how the market responds. When it's a flat line, trade it like a range bound market. Once VWAP starts to leave that range, X has a support. VWAP keeps leaving. It's a damn good trade. We come back to it. You tell me whether or not this is a strong level. It also coincides with 2750. 2750 is right around 50% of it, but this was based on that volume. Now, I don't have to pick a random number to say, yeah, the market should respond here. I don't get to choose that. And my ES trade is going against me right now. That's okay. 5 minutes left here. Gonna scan through it real quick. Coach Vince uses a 5 minute opening range. Do you find 33 minute to be better time frame? No, I don't think one is better than the other. I think the 30 is going to give you a lot different information than the 3 and the 5 are going to give you. Whatever you decide to use, just keep it consistent. Hogue uses a 1 minute. Coach Vince uses a 5. Some people use 15. Some people use 30. I think test whatever hypothesis you're looking for on each of those time frames and see which one gives you higher probability trades. And then that's the one that you choose, right? You might use a 16-minute opening range for some reason. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Are you still a fundamental trader? Not at all. Not at all. I don't really look at fundamentals at all. Every trade that I take is a technical setup based on volume. I may. How many attempts do you give a trade? I trade with a 3 to 4 risk reward, but struggling over trading. Uh, Twice. I'll give the same trade 2 attempts. 2 attempts. The first one, if it stops me out, I just take that as information and say, "Hey, maybe I was wrong on the timing, potentially wrong on the location. Is there a better time for me to take this trade?" And then for me, that's usually a higher volume time, right? Most of my trading is based around volume. So, even slow markets trades, I'm adapting to taking these where I just pick a level and allow the market to work. But when I'm trading during the New York session, it's momentum. So when I take a trade, I want to have somewhat of a, high probability of continuation of that move almost instantly. Now, if I don't get that and I get stopped out, great. I'm not going to throw the trade idea away. I'm going to assess the market and see whether or not it's still a good trade idea. And then if it is, I'll put it back on. But if it isn't, and I get stopped out again, now I have to say, hey, am I trading with a bias, or is the market telling me something and I'm not getting in? If it's a bias, then I have to stop, right? Where it's just like, okay, truly assess whether or not the market's doing what you're looking for it to do. And if it's not, you got to let that one go. How often do your trades go negative before they go positive? How often do you end up cutting a trade going negative before you hit your stop? Uh, I mean, most of my trades go negative as soon as I get in. I usually don't uh, bottom tick or top tick entries. Uh, Sometimes I get pretty close, but a lot of times they'll go against me. I'll let the trade hit my stop loss if nothing has changed. But if I see new information coming in, then I'll cut the trade. Uh, Out of the money says it's an ego bias thing. Yeah, man, I think we have to have a lot of confidence doing this, but it can't be. It's confidence in knowing that you can read what the markets are saying, and not confidence to say that, oh, I'm right. Who are you? And I'm not saying that as a slight to anybody. I remind myself of that all the time. Who am I to say where this is going to go? I don't get to control it, right? So for me to have an ego and be like, "Oh, I'm the best, this and this and that," for me, it's gotten me in trouble, right? So I'm confident in the setups that I see, but I can never be egotistical because I can't control this. I can only control my decisions in it, and when my ego shows up, usually bad things happen. But we are approaching time. Life Fab Style says I control the markets. If you do, let us know where this ES is going, please. And please tell me it's going to 58.45. Or I shouldn't even say please tell me, just make it go to 58.45, please, for my trade. Thank you. Um, Thanks, everyone. We are approaching time. Remember, I will be on Fast Markets tomorrow with Anne Marie. Excited to trade with Anne Marie tomorrow. And then after that, we have Aaron Ellis, funded trader and Traders Canada reality TV star, is joining us tomorrow, October 24th at 11 a.m. Central Time. If you want to get on Topstep TV to trade with the team, I am going to put a link in the chat as soon as I can get that link. Um, and be like Paul H. Come trade with us on Topstep TV. It's a great experience. Paul could probably tell you in the chat. I think anytime you get to trade in front of a couple thousand people, it builds confidence in your trading strategy and what you're looking for. Um, or if you're that person in the chat that says you guys suck and let me show you how to trade, fill out that form, get on Topstep TV, and show us how it's done. Um, Remember, our phone support is back as well, which is great news for Topstep. You can now call into support. Make sure you're nice to our support team. They do a lot of hard work and keep this all running. 888-407-1611 is the number for the support team. Heard some traders in the chat say they reached out to support already today and got some help, pretty quick help. So that is available to you as well. I think that is it. I think that's all I have. I'm gonna let this ES trade work. We see that VWAP is starting to leave that opening range to the upside. So I may pull this target in a little bit. But that's about it. Thank you everyone for joining. I may be on here tomorrow as well, filling in for Dakota. Just got to confirm on that. But hit that thumbs up before you go. Hopefully, everybody has a great night, and we will talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.